And yo, the Sports Bag Bros podcast is back on, and it's Monday. Another weekend of sports, but is there really sports going on after all? This is the time of year when it's the darkest in sports. Everything is gone. The NBA, if you were an NHL fan, that's gone as well. Major League Baseball has not even gotten to his All-Star game yet, which is next month, which is pretty much tomorrow. Not pretty much, but it is tomorrow. But in July is when that All-Star game does come. And we're finally going to wait until the NFL at the end of the month when they finally get together for their thing to start. And, of course, college football, everything else. But until then, we're in the abyss. And while being in the abyss, we talked about last week, our last show on Thursday, the best and unforgotten, underrated running backs in the NFL. So it wasn't the best. It was the underrated / forgotten running backs in the NFL. We came up with a litany of names. This time we turned into the quarterbacks. What's up?
What's going on, man? I see the NBA is trying to make a lot of news.
I'm seeing too. I almost want to talk about it, man.
Bleacher Report's blowing my phone up with a lot of BS with those same old big trade ideas. I don't need Bleacher Report to give me trade ideas. I can come up with my own shit. That ain't gonna happen. LeBron opts in. Now everybody's saying, "Oh, he wants a chip. He's not gonna happen in LA." I saw something saying he might be interested in going to Dallas, but is Dallas interested in him?
Exactly, man. You know, he just got this big money. I think he has an opt-out on it. You know, you saw these other Jaren Jackson in Memphis just got his bag today. So he got paid. A lot of players getting paid right now. You know, hey, this happens in the NBA. But yeah, the NBA just didn't want to go away. They're still making some splash moves. And so far, so good for some of the players who are getting this big money. More to come, of course. I think right now, based on what happened in the draft last week, people are kind of waiting even for the little bit of names that were notable names. In my opinion, the first two, if anything at all, you're talking about watching the Summer League. That's what I'm looking forward to, like every year anyway, to see who pops up, who does what, and whatever. But until the NBA.
For the first time, I didn't even watch the draft, check on the draft, look for the draft results. I got a notification the Bulls drafted some French kid, 18, 19 years old or whatever. Bruh. And I'm like, same old Bulls. They're going to hope he's good by 2029. And if he is, if he is good by then, they're probably not going to want to pay him and he's going to leave town. But it's just going to be another body added to a mediocre roster. And sad to say for me, man, I used to be all NBA all the time, and now
Draft Nick, yeah.
I'm sorry, it's not interesting.
And Lonzo Ball leaving the Chicago Bulls as if he was really there anyway. The dude hasn't played in 2 seasons. So what? They traded him for a bag of balls and some towels or something. I don't know what they got for him.
They could have traded him during the season for a first-round pick potentially, and instead they wait to the offseason and get a bust.
Well, the NBA, you know, trying to do its thing, but I think they will make some more splash moves. I don't know. But anyways, right now, we're just going to try to keep it with this NFL underrated / forgotten quarterbacks. It seems like, hell, we should have started off with that last Thursday instead of the running backs, but the running backs have a little bit more pizzazz.
I don't know. I had a tougher time coming up with quarterbacks than I did running backs, and that was just off the top of my head. I didn't even give it any thought.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I was trying to give it some thought. I was like, shit, I might have to do a little research before the show.
Well, I know last Thursday we just popped out name after name after name because there's been so many running backs. Normally when you get quarterbacks, they're incumbents, but a lot of those incumbents become good players, not great players, and then the best of those players become, well, Hall of Famers, and those aren't underrated players, and they typically aren't forgotten. There are some probably forgotten Hall of Famers, but that's probably years ago. Even some surprising players now who aren't Hall of Famers, you're wondering, damn, when are they going to finally get in? Well, we'll find out that, but we'll just go through the litany of players or quarterbacks we could come up with in the matter of the next several minutes to be able to justify the topic of underrated / forgotten quarterbacks. Do you want to do the honors with the first player quarterback that you have in mind?
I'll do the honors. This dude performed very well for my fantasy team.
I'll tell you,
because of that, he became one of my favorite quarterbacks of all time. He was a deadly combination, him and Big Ben Coates. I'm talking about Mr. Number 11, Drew Bledsoe for the Patriots.
Ben Coates, man, you brought up a name, man. We might need to talk about the tight ends. That's going to be even tougher, but Drew Bledsoe, of course. Number 1 pick overall out of Washington State. Everyone knows about that. Got to the Super Bowl, so it wasn't so bad. That was a bad Patriots team he had played for. I think they were 1-16, I believe. But anyways, got themselves to the Super Bowl. He was a very good player until Tom Brady came along. They were sharing the quarterback room. Bill Belichick at the time, I guess they didn't figure out
he got injured.
Better. And then he gets injured.
And he never got his spot back.
And I keep the Wally Pipp deal. He goes down, and that's the end of it. They call it in baseball. But Mo Lewis from the New York Jets hits him, gives him internal bleeding, and he's doing the right thing. You know, I'm gonna suck it up. I'm gonna just go through the healing process, and I'll be back. And Tom Brady goes in there and just starts picking things apart and doing things the way he's doing, and now becomes the legend he is right now. Drew Bledsoe never sees the field again. He's trying to do and say the right things, but he sees his job is pretty much gone, and he becomes Wally Pipp. He doesn't come back, and that's it. But Drew Bledsoe on top of his game.
I think people forget, and that's why I named him first. I think in their first Super Bowl run, Brady left the game, and Bledsoe had to come in and win it.
Oh, you know what? Yeah, I forgot all about Bledsoe coming in that game.
Yeah, Bledsoe came in. Brady was healthy enough to play the following week. He got his job back. But if Bledsoe doesn't come in and perform, they lose.
They lose. And even though they ended up winning that Super Bowl that they did get against the Rams, they got the field goal from Adam.
It helps when you have the other team's plays and you know their calls and all that, you know.
Man, everything just falls down on the Patriots. Anytime you talk about them, you have to bring up either Spygate or you talk about the deflated footballs or whatever the hell it's going to be. All of these Super Bowls later, I guess Tom Brady picked up, went down to Tampa, got himself a championship down there. And I don't know what the reason is for him winning the championship other than his continued greatness and what people continue to think he is as great as he is. I believe
was in the Chiefs' backfield all night.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. But I'm talking, Tom Brady, where he goes, the band goes. Without him, they don't win a Super Bowl, regardless of how good that defense is. But anyways, Drew Bledsoe, completely forgotten, a fringe Hall of Famer, but he won't get there. But it definitely fits the bill of this show that we're doing now.
He used to put up numbers.
He put up with him and Ben Coach mentioned him.
They weren't very good, but he had games where he had 40-some passes, I believe 50 passes, 50-plus passes. He had games like 380 yards and 4 touchdowns, man. He was a monster for my fantasy team.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, for your fantasy team. And if you had him and Ben Coach, you doubled up on it, got the points, got the catches, got the yards and touchdowns. Damn, so that means they were a point-getting machine back then. And so I have to come with my quarterback, since you talked about somebody who put up numbers, at least for one season only, or even a Super Bowl only. But he was a solid quarterback, I think, forgotten and certainly underrated. He took his team to the Super Bowl once upon a time. Jake Delhomme. This is a name you don't really talk about. Jake freaking Delhomme. I think it was Louisiana Lafayette he came from in college. Plays for the Carolina Panthers for the majority of his career. Got them to the Super Bowl, and they lost. But in that Super Bowl, he threw for 3 touchdowns, over 300 yards, but he also completed fewer than 50% of his passes. That big pass that he completed to Musa Muhammad, a name from the past, wide receiver out of Michigan State. I think it was an 85-yarder, but Jake Delhomme, a pretty good quarterback. That year, even in his Super Bowl year, it wasn't a great statistical year for him, 24 touchdowns, 16 interceptions that year, 2005, and he still did his thing. I think it was 2004. Either way, he did his thing.
And he did his thing in that Super Bowl. I believe he had a game-winning drive. He just left too much time on the clock.
Exactly. But that's the game in which he had fewer than 50% of his passes completed, but he still had over 300 yards passing because of that big one to Musa Muhammad in particular. But I think they not easily, but they could have won that game. It was more of a case of if you only had 15 minutes and 10 seconds instead of 15 minutes in a quarter, they may have pulled it off. But Jake Delhomme, a name that doesn't get talked about ever, probably in Louisiana, but not right now, not this day and age.
So my next one, it may not fit the criteria. It fits one of them, I believe, because he is in the Hall of Fame. Steve Young.
Steve Young. That dude I think he's perfect in terms of not being overrated.
But nobody talked about him as being one of the greats. That dude was bad.
He was awesome.
I mean, awesome. And not only with his arm, but with his legs too.
Bro, he was so dynamic with his legs. I still remember that game in which I think it was at the old Candlestick Park in that baseball field area in the dirt part.
He's
He shook
falling
somebody
down.
up and his froze. I can't remember which game it was. But Eddie had good speed. It wasn't just running speed. It wasn't just running because he just found a good lane. It was running because he was almost like a freaking running back.
He was dangerous. Yeah, he was dangerous with his legs.
And it took him so long not so long, but it took him longer than they wanted it to take for him to get that Super Bowl. And then he gets the MVP, I believe, in that Super Bowl. And hey, he gets the monkey off his back. I think he saw the video in NFL films when he talked about get that monkey off my back during the Super Bowl at the time of winding down. Get it off my back. And he finally got off his back. And then I think if you look at that Lawrence Phillips story from years ago, they claim he's the one responsible for Steve Young retiring because he missed the block. Steve Young got knocked out, never played another NFL game again. Steve Young says to this day, nah, don't blame Lawrence. That happened with anybody. It just happened to be him that day.
Well, the lineman didn't miss the block either.
Well, I guess on that blitz, Lawrence Phillips got to it a little late. The lineman was taking who they had to take. That running back is like the last plateau, and he just missed the block. And it was a clean hit on Steve. He got knocked out. But even now, he's classy enough to say it, and it may even be the truth. He said, you know what, that could have happened to anybody. It just happened to be he's the guy that's in there, and they blamed him, and he had all that baggage anyway. They might have wanted to cut him and didn't have a really good reason anyhow. That's what I'm thinking. But yeah.
I got to say Steve Young because I don't ever hear his name when people are talking about great quarterbacks. You know, it's always Montana, Brady, Manning. Then people go way back, Johnny Unitas. Like, you never hear Steve Young's name talked about.
And that's true. But, well, at least I still think about him. I mean, not all the time, but when you talk about great quarterbacks or you talk about – and because of that run a lot of times, I still think about that run he had done. But, you know, we've seen enough of him to know that he was that guy. In fact, he had more touchdowns with Jerry Rice than Joe Montana did. So, ta-da. I mean, people probably don't think that way because he came along a little bit later, or at least started a little later.
He might have made a mistake going to the USFL first. You know, that probably affected his overall numbers. But, I mean, you can't deny his greatness on the field.
I think it was a thing back then because Herschel Walker did the same, playing for the New Jersey Generals, Donald Trump's team.
They were going for the money.
You know, and Reggie White played there as well. Bart Oates, the offensive lineman for the New York Giants, eventually played there as well. They had a hell of a lot of good players that played there. It's not like today you just get the bottom of the barrel players playing with these other football leagues during the spring. No, these players were quality NFL caliber players. I remember Brian Sipe playing back then. So there were some damn quality quarterbacks, players overall across the board in the USFL. And they were able to transition to the NFL. And in Steve Young's case, and definitely in Reggie White's case, became Hall of Famers, especially Reggie White being a transcendent Hall of Famer.
Jim Kelly played in the USFL.
Jim Kelly, exactly. So, bro, you just talk about huge names playing in the USFL. It wasn't in a second-rate league. It just didn't have the organization and the monopoly the NFL was allowed to have and still allowed to have now, and they didn't survive long enough. So that was your player?
Yeah.
So, man. Well, my player would be my favorite player of all time, along with Barry Sanders. I know people who
Richard Todd.
Richard Todd. Nah. I thought he was like Gilligan, man. Come on. No. I didn't like Richard. He was terrible, man. I wanted Ken O'Brien, another player I was going to bring up a little later. But my favorite player of all time, along with Barry Sanders, Vinny Testaverde. My guy, man. Vinny Testaverde is my dude. He just got a bad break early on playing with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers when they weren't able to win anything. So he gets the brunt of the ridicule and blame for everything. And, you know, coming out of Miami after throwing all of those interceptions when Shane Conlon was like the leading receiver for the Canes that day, you know, playing against the Penn State and losing in that game. But he did do things towards the end of the season, went to a Pro Bowl with Baltimore and with the Jets, and had the Jets on the cusp of going to the Super Bowl, if not for two fumbles by Keith Byers and Dave Meggett against the Denver Broncos, up 10-0 at a half, and blowing the game, and Denver goes to the championship. Terrell Davis, blah, blah, blah. The rest is history. But Vinny Testaverde and the colorblind thing they kept talking about, they had that billboard down in Tampa. If you can see this, Giddy can't. You know, that nonsense, man. And Vinny Testaverde, though, he has to be one of the underrated. Doesn't have to be great. He's damn sure serviceable. He's been around for a long time. In fact, when I went to the Miami Hurricanes weight room, not the recent weight room, back when I went down there in 2000, before they won a national championship, in fact, the same year that they would eventually win the national championship, my friend and I, we went down there, we hung out with the Canes for a little bit in the locker room. You go to the weight room, Vinny Testaverde's name was still on the wall for the bench press record. Vinny was the beast in the weight room, man. You know, I don't know if it's down now with Brian McKinney and people like that running around. It's probably not there anymore. But he was the man there. So Vinny's always been
even
my guy.
back then, when you think about
Jerome
Brown and Russell Maryland and those guys.
Dale Stubbs, big monstrous dudes.
Yeah.
Leon Cincci, who's here in Jacksonville right now. You know, another big monstrous dudes, and Vinny's name is still up there shining, or was up there shining, maybe still up there. But anyways, yep, that's
maybe he was the only one that went all out. The other guys really didn't care.
When you got that ego going on at those types of programs, Florida State, Florida, Miami, and they're all battling with the best, trying to be the best. Someone wants to stand out in anything.
He's a big dude, though, right? He's like 6'5".
Vinny's a tall dude, tall, strong guy too, man. Vinny's always been a powerful dude. I just hate that his career didn't end up in the Hall of Fame, but he can live with it. I can live with it. You know, I followed Vinny for as long as I could possibly follow him when he went to the Canes and had to sit behind Bernie Kosar. And Bernie was the one that said, hey, you need to stay, because he was thinking about leaving. Didn't think he'll get a shot, but he did.
So my next guy, kind of a throwback, Ken Anderson from the Bengals.
That's a name I saw.
Yeah, I know he was a multiple-time Pro Bowler, got his team to the Super Bowl, and he outdued Dan Fouts when it was minus 50 degrees in Cincinnati.
Oh, yeah, that game. That was, you heard, man. That game was ice cold, but, you know, Ken Anderson is never going to get the respect he deserves. This guy was a Division III quarterback. Division III. And he goes to the Super Bowl as a quarterback. I mean, come on. And, you know, it was when you're younger, you watch the games, but you like the helmets more and just as much because you're in New York and look at those bland New York Jets helmets or those Giants helmets from old school. Looking at those Bengals helmets every now and then. Come on, those are like the best helmets at the time. And Ken Anderson, yeah, always a tough player, but good. But Division III, no one really puts Division III quarterbacks into the NFL and have any modicum of success. He was the one.
I don't know. I have to do some research on the Bears quarterbacks in the 70s. They had some bad ones.
In Division III? Division III.
I don't know if they're
Division
III. Like that's what I'm saying. I'd have to research it. But guys like Bob Avellini, guys that I will never mention as being underrated. Forgotten about, yeah, but underrated, no.
You're forgotten for good reason. Like right. Bubby Brister, forgotten for good reason. Don't bring him up. He's not playing anymore. But a player I would bring up now, my other player, would be Rich Gannon. Rich Gannon. Is he kind of sort of a fringe Hall of Famer because what he did towards the latter part of his career, you know, with John Gruden throwing the ball all over the place. But when John Gruden came down to Tampa, he kind of knew the plays, and, well, Tampa was all over the place.
Yeah, I was thinking along your lines. I don't know if he did it long enough.
That's right, towards the end of his career. But I'm glad that he got some shine, man, because he was a little bitter. It looked like he was bitter, and I think he was broadcasting recently or relatively recently. I don't know if he still is. And you can kind of tell some of the commentary he has. Seems like it has a little bitterness to it when he just speaks. It just comes across a little bitter, like, man, I was better than this guy, and this guy's getting all these props, and of course the money's or something to talk about. But yeah, Rich Gannon, certainly a player that was a damn good player. No one really talks about him other than, hell, maybe he's doing the broadcasting still. I haven't seen him. Outside of that, they're not even talking because they did lose that Super Bowl to John Gruden and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers after Tony Dungy went up to Indianapolis.
Well, since we're on the Bucs, Doug Williams.
Yeah, you know.
No, we haven't mentioned Warren Moon.
You mentioned him already. Warren Moon. But Warren Moon is he's a Hall of Fame, man. He's not man. Warren Moon is everything we said he is. He's a great damn player. He just missed the Super Bowl. He got all those damn great cups though that hold him over.
Yeah, I was going to say his numbers would be much better had he gotten a chance earlier in that.
Oh, NFL. Exactly. Coming out of Washington. But
Warren Moon could sling it, man. Plus he had weapons out there. Haywood Jeffries, Ernest Givens, and those guys.
Man, he was. Man, he that's it. He was the runner. You know what? He wasn't even a runner. He was able to run, but he didn't run a lot at all.
Yeah,
he moved. He just passed that ball all over the place. But Doug Williams, man, you know, people remember him only because, for the most part, because he had won the Super Bowl MVP, first black QB to do that. But also they just completely forget that he also played with Tampa Bay when they went to the NFC Championship game.
Right.
They lost, but Doug Williams should get a lot more credit. I don't know if they'll try to push him into the Hall of Fame eventually. I don't think that his overall numbers deserve the Hall of Fame, so I don't want to get caught up with that. But
I named him, and I don't think he's a Hall of Famer.
That's what I'm saying. I don't either.
He needs a little mention.
And he's damn good player. But the reason why he probably isn't forgotten, underrated, not forgotten only because he's always in the limelight. Whether he was coaching at Grambling, whether he's still at Grambling, he played at Grambling with Eddie Robinson being his head coach. He does so many things off the field. I went up to the Black College Football Hall of Fame in Atlanta a couple of years ago. Well, he's the guy up there. In fact, that was my first and last time seeing Hank Aaron before he passed away. So he's always somewhere doing something. So his name is going to stay out there. And people consult with him when things need to happen or when they want to do something. Warwick Dunn consulted with him, or his mom passed away, consulted with Doug Williams, and that's how he and Charlie Ward became roommates at Florida State. How often do you see a senior roommating with a true freshman? Never happens. But they had a lot in common, spirituality and so forth, and that's how it connected. But Doug Williams, definitely one of those players, and deservedly so. So that means,
you got?
Well, man, not forgotten for one reason, but I think if that reason didn't happen, we'll still talk about him intermittently only when things came up like, oh, he was tough. Steve McNair. I know because he passed away, there are people out there with the heartstrings that think that he needs to go to the Hall of Fame. I don't think so. I think he's another one of those fringe guys. I think Donovan McNabb gets in before him if Donovan's going to get in at all. But Steve McNair, tough as they come. And I have a little bit of a place in my heart for him simply because I covered HBCU football for decades, and I happened to go to an HBCU, and when I was there, I've seen Steve McNair play 3 out of the 4 times at Alcorn State. And I still say to this day, even though I've seen so many games and watched so many people in person in terms of college football, he is the best college football quarterback I've ever seen, ever in college football, ever. And the caveat is, well, against the type of competition he was playing, you know what? Imagine one of our top quarterbacks from Division 1A was still playing with that. That would be a lot to say. But he was so freaking good. And to sit there at Crampton Bowl, because I was in Alabama watching it at Crampton Bowl and seeing him sling that ball on a straight line 40 yards, but across the field, and still hearing the pads pop when it was caught, he was something different. And, he was a Heisman Trophy candidate and all this other stuff. But as far as his NFL career goes, it was the toughness that he's known for. He did not turn out to be the player I thought he would be because I saw so much from him in college. I guess I over-exaggerated what he should have been as a professional player.
Did he have enough help, though?
With Eddie George. No, you know what? As far as those players go, you know what? I don't know. That's true. How much help did he have? But then there was times when the game was on the line when, he threw it to the wrong person. Sometimes it didn't happen often, but, man, he didn't have – as far as the toughness goes, there's no question. But the it factor, that was it. It was the it factor that – he had that it factor in terms of toughness, but when it came down to getting a game won, look at the Super Bowl, throwing it to Kevin Dyson. Kevin Dyson falls short, but it's him. It's Steve McNair gets them in position. It's just that they still fell short. You got to go with that result.
Who's the bullies? Who are we bullying?
Who is this?
I don't know. It's somebody. It's a troll that changed their name this time.
Who the hell is this dude?
Anyway.
It's a trick. What?
So my next one is, I guess, going back to Cincinnati. My next one, going back to Cincinnati, Boomer Esiason, the lefty.
I know who you come. Yeah, I'm about to come with him. Yep. Yeah, Boomer Esiason. Another one who had an excellent arm. I think he threw that 500-yard game with the Arizona Cardinals late in his career with Jim Fossil as the offensive coordinator back then. And he went into a Super Bowl himself. And it was only John Taylor's touchdown preventing him from winning that Super Bowl against the 49ers.
The greatness of Montana and that offense, man.
Yeah, and even though it was stagnant for almost the entire game when they had to get it done, that was the John Candy game. Was that the John Candy game when he just came right down the field, just scored when he needed to score? They left too much time on the clock for him, and he does what he does. He found John Taylor, and that was it. John Taylor, another HBCU wide receiver from Delaware State. Man, he did this. Joe Montana being Joe Montana. That's it. As simple as that. But Boomer Esiason doesn't get enough credit. A fellow New Yorker. Played in with high school ball in Long Island, went to Maryland, did his thing. Frank Reich was his backup, believe it or not. And so, yeah, man, Boomer Esiason easily
Frank Reich was Boomer's backup?
Yeah.
Before Jim Kelly's?
Jim Kelly was in Miami.
Oh, you mean in college?
College players.
College, my bad.
Yeah, Maryland.
Okay.
But, yep, I can see that Boomer Esiason being on that list. That was something else. Let me see. I don't know. You know what? Let me think, because I was going to say one player, but he's not forgotten because I don't think he's been inactive long enough to be forgotten. And he's still on the tip of your tongue, and he may be a Hall of Famer anyway. And I think he's probably going to be, and that's Phillip Rivers.
Yeah, I can see that. He had a really good career, but no one ever talked about him as being one of the top quarterbacks in the league.
He was always that other tier dude just underneath those elite guys.
Right. He was just kind of steady. And I don't think he made it to the top, but I can see that.
Yeah, throwing all those passes, though, being in San Diego, people think about how that Air Coryell used to be in San Diego with Dan Fouts, so you kind of make it synonymous, even though it isn't. He was throwing a lot of passes. I remember him at college at North Carolina State. In fact, I came here to Jacksonville, played against Notre Dame when Carlisle Holiday was quarterbacking for Notre Dame, and they beat the crap out of Notre Dame. That was the first time I was in person to watch Notre Dame lose like that, and the North Carolina State faithful filled the stands. I was surprised because Notre Dame normally punks everybody when they bring their fans during bowl season, but North Carolina State wasn't having it.
No, they don't.
I said they normally do that. Usually they show up. Well, they didn't do it when South Carolina came here either. And then they still came from behind to beat South Carolina. So we want to do it. But yeah, man, that was Phillip Rivers is one of those players. Forgotten, and probably I still think he may just get into the Hall of Fame. He may just get, because he does have numbers.
Yeah, I can see that. Possibly. I'd have to really give it some thought. I'm not saying yes or no as far as the Hall of Fame, but I think he also played in an era where they threw the ball more. Like some of the guys we've mentioned, Boomer Esiason and those guys, they didn't throw the ball 35, 40 times a game.
Well, Boomer had Ickey Woods and James Brooks back there to give the ball to, but he still, when he had to throw it, Boomer knew how to throw the ball. He got the damn job done throwing the ball wise. But yeah, man, I think David.
Maybe Warren Moon did.
Warren Moon did what?
Throw the ball a lot.
Oh, no, he threw the ball a lot because that offense was designed. Hell, in that case, Scott Mitchell threw the ball a lot because he was also in that run and shoot. And he had Barry Sanders and still throw the ball a lot when he had Herman Moore and Johnny Morton.
Yeah, that was a high-pulling offense.
Oh, was it, man? And they keep talking about this. I know they say it, and it seems like it's legitimate that Barry hadn't had any offensive line. He had Glover on that line, and he had Lomas Brown on that line. Bro, 2 of the 5 players on that line were like all-pro players. I mean, that's not a bad line. It's probably not as good as it should have been.
I think for the majority of his career, the line wasn't that good. I think when his line gets talked about, it's in comparison to Dallas.
Yep, right. You're
Dallas and Emmett's line.
That line was insane. Emmett wasn't getting in touch for the first 6 yards when he got the ball handed off to him. Barry was scrambling for the last 2 yards.
He may not have been able to run behind that line because he'd be like, where are the defenders?
That's what I'm saying. He just went straight. Not to say that Emmett wasn't great, but come on, you put Barry in that same line. We're talking about a 3,000-yard season. Like he was in college or something. But yeah, I mean, the way he was just getting out there, it was able to just get through the line, and with the bad line he had, after shaking everybody in the backfield, he finally gets to the line of scrimmage and still breaks a 50 or 60-yarder, sometimes 70, 80-yarder. So which quarterback you kind of bring up next?
I'm going to go with Jim McMahon because not that he was great, but if you take the Bears to the Super Bowl and you win the Super Bowl, I mean, that's an accomplishment. And not only that, being in Chicago, I'm not going to say I'm the only one to know it, but we know things around here that other people around the country don't know. And, Walter Payton tells a story that when McMahon came in, it was Peyton left, Peyton right, and it'd
Yeah.
be 37, and they want to toss it to Peyton to the right, and McMahon would call a different play, and then Ditka would give him the riot act and be like, "That's not the play I called." And Walter said it went over to me. You keep doing what you're doing. I don't want to run over there either. They know it's coming. And, McMahon was a leader. If nothing else, he was a leader. And to butt heads with Ditka, you had to have a set of balls.
Yeah,
He did. And when he made plays, he threw blocks, he caught passes, whatever needed to be done, he'd go out there and do it.
he got those commercials. Outrageousness. Oh, but yeah, he was, man. I always thought he was a good quarterback until he got slammed down on his shoulder and had those issues for the rest of his career. But I always thought he was a pretty good quarterback. He took chances. We saw how he
flipped. And the Packers.
Yeah, the Packers, the bounty and whatnot. And the little flip he made when he got hit. And he was a tough player. And you didn't expect tough players like that, I guess, from BYU because it was the whack and they throw the ball all over the place. The same thing with Steve Young playing with BYU. They didn't get a lot of props because they thought it was just an offense that plays in college, but those players were soft when they get to the NFL. Nah, he was proven differently that he was able to hang with the NFL for as long as he was, though. I mean, going by the Bears' history at quarterback, man, when was the last quarterback they had that you thought was great? Oh, very good, I guess. Great is kind of going too far because you'll have to name a Hall of Famer.
And I don't know. I mean, Grossman had a decent year when they went to the Super Bowl, but I wouldn't say he was great. They had some quarterbacks that had some big seasons. Jim Miller had 1 year where he threw for a lot of yards and a bunch of touchdowns, but it wasn't anything they could sustain for a few years.
Well, let me see it, man. Because, when they talk about Jim McMahon and say that they don't have any good quarterbacks and hadn't had any good quarterbacks, I've always thought he was a good quarterback up until then. The shoulder injury, and made it just bad from then. You mentioned Rex Grossman. Isn't Rex Grossman from Santa Claus, Indiana, something like that? I think it was. I don't know whether it was him or Jay Cutler. And Jay Cutler's another one of those players who had a lot of talent. And I wonder, was it the diabetes that was an issue? Because he found out later on he had diabetes. That has to affect you as an NFL player because he started losing weight, didn't know anything. What the hell are these physicals all about that they give the NFL is supposed to be so extensive and they don't know you have diabetes, man? Come on.
So I don't know if you saw this, but I guess he gets fans come up to him and they ask him about his career, about certain games, and he's like, "Man, I don't even remember none of that. Don't ask me about no games. I'm going fishing."
Who, Jay Cutler?
Jay Cutler, yeah. Like, he thinks it's stupid. He's like, "Man, keep those nerds away from me. That's nerd shit."
But people thought he was arrogant anyway, and it was crazy because he was at SEC Media Day when I think I did my first SEC Media Day, and he's at Vanderbilt with this kind of arrogance. You're like, bro, come on, what are we talking about? Vanderbilt football in the SEC. You barely winning those games, let alone outside the conference. And he was like, he came across, you hear people talking, man, that guy's arrogant. How can he be arrogant from Vanderbilt? Whatever. So I guess that's a continuation of the arrogance. Once he leaves Vanderbilt, goes to the NFL, finishes his career, just wants to fish. Now he doesn't have to worry about the microphones under him. He just says what the hell he wants to without repercussions. And
I need to know who Deion Williams is.
Deion Williams? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know who Deion Williams is.
Deion Williams.
I still don't know
quarterback.
I still don't know who EVP is.
I can't remember Deion Williams playing in the NFL. I don't even know if there was a Deion Williams that ever played in the NFL. What do you want?
I'm not a bully. I'm just repeating what Jay Cutler said. But anyway,
well,
your turn.
My player, the next one I'll come up with, my guy, Jake Plummer. I mentioned him the other day. Man, I waited for Jake to become something special in the NFL, and he showed glimpses of almost doing it, but just didn't do it with any consistency. Second-round draft pick, Arizona State. We talked about the game, I believe it was against Ohio State they played against, where he was kind of slithering his way, trying to get the win. But, man, I always thought that Jake Plummer was finally going to put it together. I remember I was on the radio at the time. I was pimping him every chance I got. Looked stupid on Monday. But, like, damn, man, Jake messed up again. Damn. I had to kind of settle down after a little while. But Jake Plummer, I think he was on the cusp of being good. Hell, forget the Hall of Fame, but just on the cusp of being a good, respectable quarterback, but definitely forgotten.
Yeah. As a Nebraska fan, I can't forget him.
Jake the Snake.
They had won two national championships back to back. Then they went to Arizona State Sun Devil Stadium and lost 17-0 to Jake Plummer. I think they had like 4 fumbles. I don't know. They didn't have a quality quarterback to take over for Tommy Frazier. Scott Frost was struggling, and so ever since then, I didn't like Jake Plummer.
Was it Behringer there by then?
No, he graduated. Well, he passed away actually, but he was a senior.
I know he passed away now, but back then was he already gone back then?
Yeah, he died before the NFL draft.
Before the draft, I know. I was at the draft, and I remember hearing it when I got to New York. I was like,
he died before the draft. He was a senior that 95 year.
Wow, that's craziness. Anyway, that's my guy, Jake the Snake Plummer.
Yeah, I don't know. I might be tapped out. I might have to go way back. Mention a guy like Joe Cap.
Joe Cap.
Yeah, no. Take it back. Tom Flores, the first Mexican quarterback.
You talk about way back. Hell, didn't remember him more as a coach than a player.
The first Mexican quarterback, the first Mexican coach to win the Super Bowl. And while I'm at it, just mention Jim Plunkett.
Jim Plunkett, yeah. Jim Plunkett is another one of those quarterbacks. They threw him away, and I've heard stories about him. I read stories about him. You know, on YouTube now they probably have stories about him. They put a little bit more glamour in his career, but I don't think they take away from how much dissent he had going against him when he was playing. You know, he really caught the vapors, man. He didn't like it. He had every right to be bitter, man. You know, the way they treated him until he finally won the game, and they still tried not to give him the respect he deserved when he won the Super Bowl. So yeah, man, Jim Plunkett especially, man. But Tom Flores, I didn't even think about him being the first Mexican quarterback.
Yeah. No, I was just reading the comment. I'm being called a bully. Come on the show, and then I'll bully you. How about that? Come on the show.
Well, I'll show you. Link in here for these cats, man, who might want to come in. If you're somebody who wants to come in and put the link out there for you to come in instead of doing all this proxy bidding.
I'll really bully you. I want the smoke. Bring the smoke.
For real, man. We need some smoke, especially now the NFL season creeping around the corner. Here's a player I want to bring up, man. Since you brought up Tom Flores and you talking about Latino Hispanic, hey, how about Jeff Garcia, man? This was a good freaking quarterback. Jeff Garcia was good. T.O. ran him out of town for crying and complaining and yelling and screaming at him. Broke his feelings.
The original Canelo.
Yeah, man. Let me see what happened. Wait a minute. Try again. I guess I got to send it again. But either way, man, Jeff Garcia.
Yeah, he had some good seasons with the Niners.
Yeah, and I think it was more of, T.O. crying and didn't mind embarrassing him. I hated that part about it, man, that T.O. didn't mind embarrassing him and saying, he'll go to a press conference. Wait a minute. It says something else. I don't know why it's saying that, but anyway. It's not even let me send the link. Probably for the right reasons. Probably got a troll in here that needs to be handled.
Oh, I thought of another one.
All right, so who is that?
Dante Culpepper.
Oh, wow. And he fits the bill completely. He's forgotten. Only when you think about Randy Moss, you think he's synonymous with him, and you completely forget about that.
Yeah, it's not his fault. Anderson missed his only field goal of the season that in the playoff game that year.
Yeah, right? Of course. Yeah, exactly. And they were 15-1.
Right.
15-1, man.
And dude was like 34 out of 34 on field goals. Had the game
and he freaking missed.
And missed. And
keep out of the Hall of Fame just for that.
Who was the quarterback for that?
Quarterback, big arm. He just loaded up and tossed the ball down the field like a pebble, man. He just threw the ball down the field like a pebble. Dante was just a big dude. They talk about his story playing with Central Florida. Before they were a 1A team, they were a 1AA team, but he was there when it was 1AA. And he carried that program. I think it really helped because of the publicity he had gotten being so good there. It helped with that fundraising for them to make that jump to Division 1A. And so, Dante Culpepper. Yeah, man, but
he was blessed.
Things fall apart.
Huh?
Who?
I said he was blessed with talent around him, though.
He was best with what?
Talent.
Oh yeah. Talent. Man, he had more than enough talent. A washed up Randall Cunningham, essentially washed up Randall Cunningham was leading the way before him. Randall just went back in and threw it as hard as he could and just let Randy or Chris Carter make the play.
Yeah.
You know, and Matthew Hatchett was there as well. So they was making plays. Jake Reed, yeah. So was Matthew Hatchett there eventually? But yeah, maybe. Jake Reed, another one of those players that doesn't get talked about. I guess we'll do a wide receiver spot too, right? Down the road, there's a whole lot more of them to talk about.
Probably,
but that was going to be my quarterback, RC, the Uncola, as the inimitable Steve Summers in New York overnight guy used to call him RC the Uncola. Randall Cunningham, chicken legs, he used to call him chicken legs, RC the Uncola. And I don't know why, because Randall Cunningham, man, he did everything but win the Super Bowl. He had all of the ability in the world. He had the team. He had the defense because you had Reggie White, Clyde, Pittman and Jerome Brown out there, and Simmons. Man, he had everybody out there on the defensive side of the ball. And did he really need a running back?
I don't know. I think it's hilarious how all those Eagles players say they would have beat the Bears if the fog didn't roll in. As if the Bears weren't playing in the same fog. They're playing in the
fog too, right? It's surreal. It's like if the Packers and the Bears got together, you blame the snow. Man, they both see snow all the time. They both know cold weather. Why are you going to use the snow as an excuse? But I remember that fog game. Yeah, man.
I was so pissed. I was fired up for that playoff game. The fog rolled in. I'm like, what the hell, man? Can't see shit. Couldn't see shit on the TV.
Damn, I remember that monsoon game down in Miami. That monsoon, God, man, you roll your damn boat to the
they
end
probably
zone.
Shouldn't have played that one.
Nah, definitely shouldn't have, man. Shoot, heads you win, tails you lose. Let Noah decide the game. Come on, Noah had an arc in the middle of the field. But anyway, now that's your turn. You get to pick your quarterback.
Who did you say?
I just.
You said Cunningham.
Randall Cunningham. RC the Uncola.
RC the Uncola. Man, I think I'm all tapped out now. I can't think of anybody. So you might have to mention someone else to trigger.
Brad Johnson.
Brad Johnson
won a Super Bowl with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and ironically, as I mentioned, after this past Super Bowl, had almost the identical numbers of Jalen Hurts. Didn't get the MVP because the defense played so well. The defense, you got the MVP came from the defensive side of the ball. I think a lot of that should have just happened in this past Super Bowl as well. The defense kind of ruled the day, and someone on the defensive side should have gotten the ball. But hey, we got our MVP, and Jalen Hurts can't take it away from him. But Brad Johnson put up a lot of the same numbers, didn't get it, but happily ever after has himself a Super Bowl ring.
Yes, I thought about someone. Didn't get to the Super Bowl, but Matt Schaub.
Matt Schaub, man,
he had some good seasons, man.
He had some down in Atlanta, but a Virginia guy. He played well at Virginia. I think was he quarterbacking back when Tiki Barber was there. I think he might have been back then with Tiki Barber, but either way, I think it was after Tiki Barber. But either way, he was a good quarterback. Never really, I don't think he even threatened the Super Bowl. He even threatened to get to a Super Bowl. A pretty good quarterback. I think he's a pretty good quarterback, but definitely a name to remember. A blast from the past. I'm not like, man, who that? Let me go back a little bit. This Bubby Brister? Nah, did better than Bubby Brister though.
Who was the quarterback for the Steelers when they got to the Super Bowl?
Terry Bradshaw. Neil O'Donnell.
Not that back.
Neil O'Donnell. Oh, yeah, the one who just threw the ball straight to my man from Dallas and just made him the MVP. They gave him that big contract, and the dude was a bust. My man, come on. Oh no, Neil O'Donnell.
Better than Bubby
and then the Jets decide, that looks good for us. Let's get him. The Jets gave him a $25 million contract. Bro, what are you doing here? That's what the Jets do. Come on, man. If it's not Neil O'Donnell, it's freaking Zach Wilson. Get out of here, man. That's just how they treat their fans. But that's how it was. Where Neil O'Donnell was not a good quarterback. He was a solid quarterback, but he showed his ass at the worst time when he played in the Super Bowl, gets his money with the Jets, and definitely showed why he should not have been.
What about the snake?
Which snake?
The original snake.
Ken Stabler?
Ken Stabler, yeah.
Yeah. Didn't go to the Super Bowl. One of the coaches here in Jacksonville.
I thought they went to the Super Bowl.
No, he did go to the Super Bowl. They won a Super Bowl. Yeah, but I meant didn't get in the Hall of Fame.
Oh,
yeah, because I'm good friends with one of the coaches here in Jacksonville who's in the Florida High School Football Hall of Fame, and that's his guy. Period, man. And I wish I could have made it happen for him. That was his guy, and I was gonna try to get Ken Stable to meet up with him, man. And didn't make it happen, man. But that was his guy. He'd have probably passed out if he saw Ken Stable. That was his guy forever. Seriously, that was Coach Sullivan here in Jacksonville. People know him statewide, but he would have been over his head if he would have gotten a chance to meet Ken Stable. He's like, man, I'll die to have a beer with that guy one day. Couldn't make it freaking happen, man. I hated it. But Ken Stabler, man, he was just that guy. He was a man's man, as the Mafia guys would say. Yeah, man. He was
a friend of ours.
Yeah, a friend of ours. He's a friend of a bunch of people. Let me see. Shoosh. I don't know who the heck is going.
I thought of another one you want me to say it.
Jay Schrader.
Really?
Jay Schrader, because he played with that Washington team and they were pretty good.
Yeah, I guess.
And he used to throw that ball so I could have said Tom Arenovich, but not just he did nothing. He's known more for what he didn't do than what he did. With his father making him a football player when he probably should have just been, I don't know, not a football player.
Whatever happened to his little brother? Wasn't he a good tennis player?
Oh, yeah, I remember his father had another one in the lab, and
yeah.
Obviously, it fizzled. It didn't happen.
He didn't make it. So I just thought of Captain Comeback, man, Jim Harbaugh.
Earlier today I was thinking about him, but I was like, man, we still remember him because he's now a coach,
right?
National championship coach,
and his playing days.
Yeah, forgot about his playing days. In fact, I remember that time when he threw that ball at the last second with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Almost got
against Indiana. Almost got that freaking win. So that's Jim Harbaugh right there, man. You see people kind of make him a caricature now because of the things he does and says, but that dude was a straight up baller. He was the quintessential coach's son. That tenacity, almost talented enough to be elite, but just good enough to be in the NFL. And he got through with a lot of tenaciousness.
So is it only guys who are no longer playing?
Because if they're playing, they can't be forgotten so much sooner. If they're still playing, Joe Flacco. Oh, I remember him.
That's what I was gonna think. That's what I was gonna say because he's gonna be in the Ravens Hall of Fame, if not the actual Hall of Fame.
He got a damn Super Bowl. He damn sure will be. He might be the Browns Hall of Fame too. He keeps it. They got nobody else in there. What? Bernie Kosar by himself?
I'll tell you who I forgot. The quarterback the Browns drafted before Shedeur Sanders. I forgot. Who was it?
You talk about the one. What's his name? Dylan Gabriel.
There you go, Dylan Gabriel. Yeah, he's forgotten.
He played for Oklahoma, then up there. Central Florida, Oklahoma, then Oregon. I think it was. These guys traveling around the world, and I. Come on, man. These guys doing it everywhere now. Let me see. A quarterback. I mean, if I just want to stay a little homer, a guy I do remember because he played for my team, but he was also a damn good quarterback for a window of time. What's it? Ken O'Brien.
Oh, you mentioned him earlier.
Ken O'Brien?
Yeah.
No, Richard Todd.
No, I said Richard.
You said Richard Todd. I didn't mention Ken O'Brien.
You did say Ken O'Brien.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay.
In response to me saying Richard Todd, you said Ken O'Brien.
Oh yeah. I think I mentioned him because you mentioned him. I said I'm gonna talk about Ken O'Brien later. So I guess this is that later point.
Oh, but you were actually saying Richard Todd?
No, I was saying no way to Nick Richard Todd.
Oh,
and I was
okay.
like, you bring up Richard Brown. I couldn't stand him. Look like Gilligan. I said, I'd rather pick Ken O'Brien, but I'll talk about him later. Well, I guess now is later.
Okay,
Ken O'Brien was a good quarterback. He had shootouts with Dan Marino when Dan Marino was certainly in his prime. You had like 500-yard games going back and forth between these guys. He had weapons. Freeman McNeil, who we talked about last week, being the running back for the Jets. Then he also had Wesley Walker on one side, Al Toon on the other. Man, that was a hell of a damn potent offense. But I think things went downhill with him against the Dolphins when he tried to go into the end zone and Lewis Oliver came from his safety spot to put the wood on him, and he turned his back. He didn't want to get hit at the 1-yard line. He never heard the end of it. Now, I don't know if that completely ended his career, but damn, that's not the way you want to be dignified.
So what about Bob Greasy?
That's not going too far back. Bob Greasy, he won a Super Bowl, but he wasn't the quarterback for the team when he won the Super Bowl. I mean, remember he was injured in that. Was he injured? He didn't play in the Super Bowl.
I don't know.
Yeah, and then
And they won a Super Bowl before I was watching football, so I couldn't tell you. I
bro,
just know
72.
watching
72
Dolphins
is a long
games.
time.
I just know watching Dolphins games. I remember Brian Greasy being pretty
Yeah,
good.
Brian Greasy, you know, and
I mean
he
Bob
wasn't
Greasy, not Brian.
Bob
Bob.
Greasy. Brian Greasy is the one I remember more than Bob because I didn't watch
He's
Bob play,
more
but Brian Greasy.
recent.
Remember, Brian Greasy is the one who got pushed down the stairs by his dog, allegedly when he chipped his tooth. And then we find out he was just drinking a little too much, and the stories are just a little bit elusive. So anyway, yeah, Bob Greasy, that's an old school joint, man. That's way back when they in 1972, no name defense, and he was on offense. What's going on? So let me see. Well, Phil Simms.
Yeah.
Very good quarterback. I think outside of New York, no one talks about him. But he was a damn solid quarterback and for what the Giants
he might
did.
have had the best Super Bowl game ever as a quarterback.
Yeah, percentage-wise, completion-wise, yeah. I think he's 22 for 25. He only
something like that. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, that was in Super Bowl 20 in 1986 against the Denver Broncos. And because I know when they were a good team in 1990, he got injured. No one even touched him. It was a non-contact injury. I think he broke his ankle or something. And that's when Jeff Hostetler came in. And he was able to win the Super Bowl later on that year. And I remember, Dave Meggett played for the New York Giants that year. And he and Jeff Hostetler didn't get along. I didn't know that until watching the news one day. And they had some bickering going back and forth. If it was social media, they'd have blown the thing up now. But he was like, yeah, he doesn't know how to be quiet. I want to be the one to shut him up. He said that in a news conference. And they're going back and forth. Like, I'm like, damn. But when it came down to winning that Super Bowl, when Jeff Hostetler did go down, Dave Meggett was holding his hands like, yo, bro, we need you, man. We need you. And they did, and they won the Super Bowl because of it. And more because of the missed field goal, but still, Jeff Hostetler had a pretty damn solid game. He held on to that ball. I still can't believe how he held on to that ball in the end zone when he got sacked for a safety when it should have easily been snapped out of his hand and picked up for a touchdown or fell on for a touchdown. But yeah, so Jeff Hostetler, another quarterback, another one. Forgotten.
He was only decent for a couple of years, wasn't
he? Yeah, he won the Super Bowl with the Giants. He ended up going to the Raiders. He did okay, therefore as good as the Raiders do or had done back then.
Who was their quarterback the year Norwood missed the field goal?
Who's quarterback
for the Giants?
That was Jeff Hostetler.
Oh, was it?
Super Bowl 25, yeah. Yep. Phil Simms, I think, got hurt in that 49ers game, I think it was. It was like a 10-3 game or something like that. It was a real close beat-down game. I think that was the game that Mark Bavaro carried like the whole 49ers team, including Ronnie Lott, just dragged his ass like, bro.
Breaking news.
Brook Lopez to the Clippers. Michael
Capella
Porter Jr.
back to the Rockets, huh? Did they really need him? They got Şengün and Adams already.
Man, these man, and the Mavs Capella to the Rockets, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think the Rockets need
That's
Capella.
what I'm saying. I don't know. Maybe it's a salary dump.
Maybe Chip to move him.
Well, you know what? At least the Rockets are making some noise out there trying to get things in place for trying to win a legitimate championship. Now that they got their guy, KD, in the house, but the guy they went after, though. Let's see how that works out. They still have to have chemistry and see how these Houston Rockets go. But anyways, man. I mean, how many more players out there? I mean, there's a lot of quarterbacks. I know it's like last Thursday after we got off, I'm thinking about all these quarterbacks. Jamal Lewis. Oh, my God. We forgot Jamal Lewis. D'Angelo Williams. Oh, my God. Forgot him, too. All these freaking running backs just come out of nowhere. Michael Bennett. Nigga, how fast he was, but you untie his shoe while he's running. He's falling down. The dude had no power, But so, I mean, other quarterbacks are out there. Shoot. Let's go down. Steve DeBerg.
Oh my gosh, I was just thinking of Steve DeBerg. This crazy, you spit it as it came into my head.
Steve DeBerg. We've been doing this too long. Steve DeBerg, not a bad quarterback. I mean, he don't get the props he deserves. He has some longevity. A quarterback someone did bring up the other day was Steve Grogan.
Oh yeah,
and how he just left his life out there in the football field. Steve Grogan. I laughed when I first saw him, but I thought about it. Yo, this dude put everything in his life on the freaking football field. This dude played with a neck brace. Come on, man. Steve freaking Grogan, man. And the way the Bears beat him up. Come on, man. 85. Well, they beat up everybody, but he was even there. He was there for the taking. And this is embarrassed those guys. They could have easily scored a lot more on them. I don't know why they didn't, but they didn't. But yeah, man. Let me see what other quarterbacks.
I think the Patriots defense actually wasn't that bad with Andre Tippett and those guys.
Yeah, Andre Tippett, they had a good defense. It's just that damn defense was so good for the Bears, and the offense, well, as long as you had Sweetness, you had a damn offense. You know what I mean? You still had Willie Galt out there, and the offense is, even though they did sustain Sweetness and gave the ball to Fridge, but yeah, for some reason, it's just, I guess.
That was their downfall. They put too much focus on Walter.
Yeah, they locked that dude up. They went into that game saying, you know what, if we lose this game by 50, Walter ain't getting a yard.
Congratulations, you stopped Walter.
And you almost lost by 50.
And you lost 46-10.
I'm saying you still almost lost by 50. Stopping the damn great player. All right, you want to invest in that? We got some other investments, man. This is only one stock. We have a whole bunch. This is the NASDAQ. But yeah, man, what else we have?
I don't know, man. We're 55 minutes in. I'm tapped out, bro.
Damn, man. Glenn Foley? Nah. I'm just mentioning him.
I wasn't sure gonna make it this far. I'm just glad you didn't mention Mark Sanchez, trying to say he gets a bad rap because of the butt fumble or something.
Nah, he gets a good rap because of that defense. And that defense is what made him look better than what he really was. I was at that draft saying, don't do it. And fans would tell me, man, you don't know what you're talking about. Now what, man? It was a damn defense. Same thing they told me about what's his name? Vernon Golston. Same thing. You don't know what you're talking about. He's going to be a stud. Man, shoot. Stud in what movie? But anyway, that'll be it for now. Looks like Thursday is going to be upon us in a heartbeat. The way the NBA is going along, man, we may have to get back into the NBA, man. These dudes won't leave us alone. They try to splash a little bit. They're throwing a whole bunch of cash everywhere. New faces and new places and players making demands, trying to go to other teams. I mean, trying to set themselves up to win championships. Let's see how LeBron's saga works out.
I saw the Clippers re-signed Harden and gave him like $40 million. I'm that's a dumb move. And then
he didn't do anything other than not scoring when it mattered. He had a pretty decent season.
Oh, shit. A team and CP3 might reunite. I'm like, why would they do that now?
You should retire, man. But if they give him money, stay. They paying you, stay, man. CP3. Right. You know, I mean, I guess that's the only way because come on now. No one's going to win a championship with him. And if he didn't win a championship, it may be because of him.
I gotta mention it. What? I've been asking for Angel Reese to play more like Moses Malone and not like Draymond. And she's been balling recently. I don't know if you saw. I think she had 24 points and 16 rebounds last night.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, man.
I did see an article of someone saying that she should win the MVP. Now, stop getting carried away if that was the game that made them say that.
I won't say that. I mean, but she's got to do it like consistently.
Exactly.
It can't be a 4-game stretch and then she goes back to shooting 30% in the paint.
Yeah, and not to mention, she did have a 2-point game this season. 2 points. So MVP talk.
It was like 10 days ago.
You know what I'm saying?
But she had a nice bounce back from that 2-point game.
She bounced back several times since then. You know
that's because
it's always been balling. Her and Kaylin are going to always be synonymous, and it's ridiculous that they're going to be synonymous, different positions in the whole 9. If they want to do it just for ratings, they could probably get away with it. Kaylin's probably not going to win in terms of that kind of thing this year because of the many games she's already missed. This chick already missed about 5-6 games already, you know, and the season's not even halfway through. You know, and then not to mention she was in a little bit of a slump of her own just in the last game she was in. So it's probably why she's injured or playing like injured or whatever.
Yeah, anyway. I saw one of the dumbest things. Someone's claiming she's not in a shooting slump. She just can't handle the defensive pressure. Did they not watch last year? They were guarding her as soon as she caught the ball from out of bounds, the whole court.
They're just talking.
Like pressure, like she wasn't getting guarded, harassed, hounded, whatever you want to call it, from baseline to baseline. Come on, man. Get out of here with the dumb shit.
And then they just start doing that again this season, and she still got a triple-double. Come on now. People are just going to talk with those oxygen.
When a girl makes a free throw and then runs over to guard Caitlin Clark, forgetting that she has another free throw to shoot, What's that tell you?
That's what we're talking about. This is the kind of clown world we live in, and people just want to talk. Once again, oxygen free, but on Tuesdays it's not. So don't make your comments. So anyway, on Thursdays we hope they get that oxygen supply going once again, so we can talk about whatever's happening in the sports world. Now the NFL is trying to get their thing together, and everybody's kind of setting up for this season that's going to be starting pretty much next month. Before you know it, we're going to have a preseason game. Well, the Hall of Fame game, they typically have that. But camps are going to open up. You're going to hear the storyline. You're going to hear the complaining, the moaning, the groaning, some players being let go so they'll have opportunity to link on with other teams. But until then, he's Bison Trav, and the Sports Bag Bro podcast is signing off on a Monday. And until Thursday, deuces.